State lawmaker turned defendant. That is the new title facing Georgia State Senator Sean Still.
The Norcross Republican surrendered himself at the Fulton County Jail early this morning. He is one of the 19 people named in last week's sweeping indictment from Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. The question at this hour, though, will he remain in office as the legal process plays out, or will he be suspended? Investigator Rachel Polensky joins us live in studio. Rachel, you've been digging into some older cases to see if what happened in the past could indicate what we could see next.
Yeah, I have, and I found 4 cases going back to 1999 in which sitting Georgia lawmakers were convicted of various crimes.
Most recently, in 2015, former state representative Tyrone Brooks was charged with mail, wire, and tax fraud. While awaiting trial, a 3-person committee charged with determining whether Brooks would remain in office voted not to suspend him. Despite his legal troubles, Brooks was re-elected by his Metro Atlanta constituents, only to resign after pleading guilty to tax fraud. In 2019, then Georgia Insurance Commissioner Jim Beck was sentenced to federal prison following his conviction for stealing more than $2.5 million from the Georgia Underwriting Association. He was also charged with tax fraud for filing fraudulent income tax returns. Beck voluntarily suspended himself from office pending the outcome of his criminal case. But he was also bringing in a state salary between his suspension and his conviction, which is one of the reasons why the General Assembly passed a law last year that pauses state officials' compensation if they're suspended from office for a felony.
And Governor Kemp is currently in the process of appointing a 3-member commission that will review Still's case, a similar committee to the one that reviewed Tyrone Brooks's case and voted against suspending him. Now, if Still is suspended, he will not be paid his state salary while this legal process plays out. We should have an answer as to whether or not he will be suspended by mid-September. Sean, Rick?
Rachel, thank you.